and then watch. Do you want me to hit it on my end too?
I hit go live. Yeah, I hit. I feel like the video thing is not streaming from the OBS.
Okay, mine says go live. It says, yeah, it has the stop streaming and broadcast as options now.
Phil says we see you. Phil, can you hear us? Can you see us? All of the feedback for this thing is messed up. Okay, I guess we are live. Holy shit! Finally, after all these attempts here, we are streaming live. This is Bam Fight Club. I'm Colby. This is Fern. We are coming back from quite a long break of not having UFC fights, so glad to be back and previewing the fight between Strickland and Imavov, or the fight card featuring them, with the fights taking place at the UFC Apex, Las Vegas, Nevada. Uh, and yeah, should we just jump right into the fights here, Fern?
Yeah, let's go for it.
All right. First up, we've got some crazy odds, some Shevchenko versus anybody type odds with Umar Nurmagomedov versus Raoni Barcelos. And Umar, he's coming in as a negative 1,000 favorite. So these odds are absolutely crazy. Um, and Umar, undefeated, 15-0, going against Barcelos. Both of the guys coming off of a win, but the odds makers think that Barcelos has got no chance. So what do you think, Fern? Do you think he's got a chance?
Against Umar and their fight camp, I think absolutely not. Like, they're just so good at preparing, grappling. It seems like they're all working on their striking a lot lately as well. So I think with that, that camp is pretty well rounded at this point. The fact that they've been able to drop people like, Khabib dropping Connor, um, who's the one that just won the title when he dropped Oliveira, like they are dropping strikers, so their stand up is just on another level at this point. It seems like they're able to work around their grappling, around their takedowns, around all that, and then they're dropping people and then dominating them on the ground. I definitely chose Nurmagomedov as my pick for DraftKings. So for any of you guys who are doing any of that stuff, that's my pick. Like I think it's pretty clear cut. I think. What are your
Yeah,
thoughts?
I think Umar's going to take him down. It's going to be a ground and pound. I guess the only thing that is interesting in like the stat matchup is that if you look at Barcelo's his grappling defense, takedown defense, he's got a 93% takedown defense. So I don't know if this is supposed to be like a kind of a test for his grappling. But I feel like even if Barcelos has that takedown defense, it's not against someone with Omar's grappling skill. So yeah, I think it's gonna be pretty one sided. I guess making predictions, we both think overwhelmingly he's going to win. How about what round do you think it'll be over in? Because I'm assuming you think it's going to go to a finish.
Yeah, I think he's probably. I could see Nurmagomedov getting him figured out round one, and then round two just looking to take him down and just ground and pound. I could see it being stopped that way. They just have such a good way of doing what they call what do they call the seatbelt, which is the Dagestani handcuff. They just pin your arm behind your back across your behind your body, and then they just go to work. And I see that coming up like pretty quickly, going for the takedown, pinning the hand behind, grabbing it with probably his right hand, and then just swinging with his left hand. They're just so dominant in holding and controlling people.
Yeah, and I think everyone's got a puncher's chance here. So I feel like that Barcelos, he's going to have to early on when he's got all of his strength and conditioning and hasn't been had his power taken out from the grappling. He's going to have to start off quick and go for some strikes and kind of swing for the fences if he's going to have any chance. So um, Yeah, let's just go ahead and get into the next one, which is a little bit more interesting. I feel like in terms of the matchup and competitiveness, uh, Caitlin Vieira versus Raquel Pennington. Vieira coming in as a negative 130 favorite, so odds are pretty close on this one. Uh, you know, I'll start with Raquel, who is a longtime veteran in the sport. Uh, came in when did she start? Man, it's been so long ago. I've got to look way back here. 2013. Okay, so she's been doing this for 9 years in the UFC, longer than that if you count some of the other organizations, and has a pretty good record. She's coming off a four-fight win streak, three of those being by decision, and one of them by submission against Macy Chasen. Her last fight was against Aspen Ladd, so she's been hanging around the I'd say like the mid to top uh, rankings for quite some time. Always seems to be putting on a competitive fight. I can't recall her being in a fight where she was just completely overwhelmed and outmatched. So is always able to bring a competitive fight into the ring. Whereas Vieira, she's coming off of a two-fight win streak, most recently against Holly Holm in May of last year, which ended up going all 5 rounds, and she ended up winning by decision. I don't recall all the details of that fight, but I feel like it was a pretty close fight. It was a split decision. It wasn't a unanimous decision. Um, but Holly Holm obviously being a top competitor, and the win before that was against Misha Tate, so she's got some good wins under her belt. In terms of who is going to win, I don't know. I feel like the odds probably make sense here. That it's pretty even. Do you think it goes to Vieira's got a slight edge, or Pennington, Fern?
I think this is going to be a great fight. They both have decision fights versus Holly Holm, whereas Raquel lost. Vieira won. And I think for the Vieira one, I thought it was a 50-50. Like, I wasn't surprised that she won, but also I was like, I wanted Holly Holm to win to kind of get, closer to the title shot and, her back in the mix. Whereas Raquel lost to Holly Holm in 2020. But they have, like, it's crazy their resumes. They're fighting, besides losing to Holly Holm, Raquel has lost to Jermaine Rondemy by decision. Her last loss, really by stoppage, was to Amanda Nunez, and we know how Nunez just beats people up. But also Vieira, against McMahon, against Ngannou, against Misha Tate and Holly Holm recently. This is going to be a great fight to start off the year for the women. I think last year, like we were just super excited about the women's fights early on in the year, and it just kept that same energy. And I think I'm so happy that this is on the main card because this is a chance to see somebody, hopefully fight for the title soon. They both have, more wins than losses, and I'm excited for this one. I think this is going to be a back and forth, hopefully toe to toe one, if not a good grappling match. They're both pretty balanced. The common foe in Holly Holm, how she knocks people out and has good grappling. The fact that they were able both took her to 5 rounds shows me that they both have the cardio, the endurance, and the skills to stand with somebody who has like above average or like one of the best striking. So definitely this is going to be a fight to watch. I have Vieira as my pick on DraftKings. What about you?
Yeah, I'm kind of leaning towards Vieira. If you look at stats and fighting style on the stats, they're pretty even on almost everything except for Vieira seems to have a slight edge on the grappling and wrestling. Um, Also has a slightly better takedown defense. So I feel like it's pretty close to a mirror match with just a slight edge to Vieira. So I'd probably at this point leaning towards Vieira. If it's going to be a finish, I think Vieira will get it by submission. But the odds makers, I think, are predicting this one goes the distance and does not come to a finish. So um, I think it's going to be potentially Vieira by sub, or else she's going to end up winning by decision.
Yeah, that takedown defense, 92%, like that's crazy.
Yeah,
And significant strikes, they're both about the same landing per minute. Um, Pretty close on defense. So
yeah.
yeah,
And
this is
when
going
it
to be
comes
good.
to I just want to say when it comes to stats, you always got to remember, how do these stats get racked up? And sometimes a guy's only got one fight or two fights, that those stats are going against. So the stats don't really tell you a whole lot until you get many more fights, and also the level of competition. And so, just a reminder, those stats I feel like are a bit more reliable because neither one of these fighters are noobs. They're longtime veterans, and they've been fighting against top level opponents for quite some time. So um, let's see, what do we have next up on the main card? Oh my god, I can't say this guy's name. Punalhe, Punahale
I,
Suriano against Roman Koplev. Uh, and this one, yeah, I mean, pretty close on the odds too. Negative 150 favorite for Suriano. So a slight favorite. But go ahead and kick us off with your analysis on this one, Fern.
Yeah, I think both of these guys are probably looking to come out and, show off their skills. Kopolov is coming off of a knockout win, in round three and a minute in, but before that he had two losses, a decision and a submission. So I think you definitely saw that. His record is all TKOs, TKOs, KOs, TKO, KO until those two losses, and then he came back with a KO. You can clearly see he's gonna look to finish standing up on the feet. Um, with what I'm assuming is Punahele. His last fight was win by KO. This looks like it's probably gonna be a stand up and and fight it on the feet because his record is same thing, a bunch of KOs, TKOs. His losses were decisions, and he lost to Nick Maximov, who is a Diaz trained fighter, who has great grappling, great submissions. I think this is going to be a fight that is going to end up on the feet. Like I could see this ending in round one. Definitely, they're both big guys. They're just solid. Both pack on a lot of muscle, and judging by their finishes and their style, I think they're just going to meet in the middle and just swing like Rock'em Sock'em Robots, man. It's got to be one of those fights that this is. If this isn't fight of the night with KOs, TKOs, I'd be surprised. They're landing about the same amount of shots per minute, significant strikes about the same, absorbed about the same. Grappling, they're both not known to take down uh, much per fight. It looks like Punahele is only doing about one takedown per fight, and Roman Kopylov has such few takedowns that it's 0.37 per fight. Like, what's he doing? One takedown every two or three fights. So and his defense is solid. So I think it's going to be definitely hopefully just sprawl, keep it standing if they do decide to take it to the ground.
All right. And what's interesting here is these guys' records. They've both been in the fight game about the same amount of time. They both 9-2-0. But not just that, their three most recent matches, or I mean, if you go back their win loss record, they're identical. Meaning, uh, you know, Roman is coming off of a win. Before that, two losses, and same thing with Sariano. He's coming off a win, and before that, two losses, and before that, for both of them, they had won every match up to that point. So, pretty interesting. Neither one of these guys seems to have much of an advantage in terms of a big experience gap. One of them, Soriano's 30, Roman's 31, so there's not much age advantage. As you mentioned on the stats, there's a little bit difference in the grappling. Their striking stats are very, very similar. So this could be another case, kind of like with Raquel and Vieira, where there might be a slight advantage to one of these guys' favor due to the grappling. So wait, what was your pick? Who do you think he's going to win this one?
I'm going for Soriano on this one. The one thing I do want to point
Uh,
out is Kopolov looks to only be fighting about once a year. Once in 2022 in September, once in 2021 October, and before that 2019. Whereas Soriano is fighting twice in 2022, twice in 2021. That might, we'll see. And then before that he took 20. Well, everyone took 2020 off, but he was two in 2019, two in
yeah,
2018.
so Sariano's been quite a bit more active recently. So uh, yeah, in terms of who am I going to pick, it's you know it's hard to say because Sariano maybe has a slight advantage in the initiating in the wrestling department. But Roman's got pretty good takedown defense. So I don't know. I feel like this one's a coin flip. As you mentioned, the fighter being more active, I'd say that definitely gives somebody the advantage, assuming they didn't get injured recently. So I'm probably leaning towards Soriano as well on this one.
Nice.
Um, let's see. Dan Ige co-main event versus Damon Jackson. Ige coming in as a negative 140 favorite. Damon Jackson uh, at plus 120. This at the 145-pound weight class. And Dan Ige, I'm trying to recall his last fight against Evloev. I feel like it was a good fight up to a point, and if I recall, because it was a unanimous decision, Ige ended up taking a lot of damage, and he's also coming off of 3 losses, a win before that, and a loss before that against Cater. So he's been going against top level competition, but he's had quite a few losses in his last several fights. Damon Jackson, on the other hand, coming off of a 4 fight win streak. So just in terms of probably confidence, mental advantage, definitely seems like it would go towards Damon Jackson. These guys are pretty close in age. Dan Ige, 31. Damon Jackson, age 34. But I feel like that confidence, mental advantage is definitely got to go to Jackson. Ige, if you're coming off of 3 losses, even the most experienced guy, especially a guy who's had mostly wins during his career, to be coming off of 3 losses has got to be very very tough. So I'm actually a little bit surprised that he's the favorite here. But what are your thoughts? Why do you think odds makers are favoring Ige on this one?
I think just the level of opposition they're facing. Action Jackson, I gotta call him Action for a reason, man. He fought 3 times in 2022. That's pretty intense workload right there, and he fought 3 times in 2020. So his, one person that I would say, that he's fought that's, high caliber is Ilia Topuria, and he got knocked out in round one, and that was, a couple years back in 2020. Dan Ige, he's got a couple losses on his record, but it's like to Chan Sung Jung, Josh Emmett. His last fight, I would say, he's losing, but he's not getting finished. He's not getting stopped. Even against Calvin Cater, who was at that point just blasting through everybody, he's holding his own. So he's definitely able to hang in there with strikers like Edson Barbosa, who will forever be known for that spinning back kick against Terry Edom. I'm gonna be. This is, I think, a toss up for me. I definitely chose Dan Ige on this, just because for me he's the more familiar fighter, the more rounded. He's faced a combination of all kinds of fighters and come out, yeah, on the wrong end of a decision loss, but not being finished. Whereas, Jackson definitely is going to have the advantage. He's going to be in shape. He's active. He's fighting 3 times in a year is ridiculous. I don't know anybody, besides people just starting out that are fighting that often. And yeah, that's going to be a crazy workload. And to start off on the first fight card of the year, he's probably going to match that this year going at the rate he's going.
Okay. Well, I think I'd pick Damon Jackson on this one. I feel like he's got the mental advantage coming off of the multiple win streak. As you mentioned, he's very active in 2022, but his last fight in 2022 was in September, so he's now had October, November, December off. So he's it's not like some of these fighters we've seen sometimes where 2, 3, 4 weeks in between some of the fights, which has definitely got to take a toll. So he's had time to recoup, assuming he didn't get hurt too bad in his last fight. So I feel like that favors him, the activity. I feel like his disadvantage is that he doesn't have quite as much experience in the UFC as Dan Ige, and kind of as you mentioned, hasn't had the quite the level of competition that he's gone up against. So I feel like this is going to be the test for David Jackson. This is going to be one of the biggest names if he can rack up a win here. That'll be on his resume, and that's going to be important for being able to climb up those rankings. So I'm leaning towards Damon Jackson. I feel like there's not say I mean there's not that there's more on the line, but there's something different on the line for Damon Jackson than Danny Gay. Danny Gay, if you got 4 fights you lose in a row, you got to be worried about your contract with the UFC, I would imagine. But for Damon Jackson, if he's going to be making, plans to make a run at the title in his career, he's going to need to fight guys like Dan Ige and rack up those wins to be able to get that chance. So I feel like he's gonna have that different kind of pressure. Dan Ige maybe he's more on the defensive mentally, and Damon Jackson more on the offensive. So I'm leaning towards Jackson.
Yeah, and you can see like by Damon Jackson's stats, he's got quite a bit of submissions. He's got two submissions per 15 minutes, so it looks like he's one that will look to throw up a submission a couple of times in a fight, whereas Ige is not likely to do that. His takedown average is double that of Dan, so I wouldn't be surprised if he, looks to mix it up. I expect Dan to stand and try to win it that way, or although he doesn't have dominant stand up, I could see him just, trying to feel it out and hold his own up standing. He's definitely lands more per minute, more significant strikes. He also absorbs more. But I see Dan Ige looking to um, keep it standing, whereas I definitely can see now, like looking at the stats, that Damon's probably like the more well rounded person in all when it comes down to it.
Yeah, Nige definitely not afraid to go into the fire to throw his strikes. So yeah, I think that'll be a good fight. I think it's going to be a high paced one. All of Dan's fights, even if he ends up losing, at least from what I recall, they tend to be pretty exciting fights because he's willing to push the action and not afraid to take some shots to get in there and try to impose his will. So last up on the main card, we've got the main event, the last minute replacement. We've got Sean Strickland versus Nasruddin Imavov. I think I might have actually said that correctly. Strickland coming in as a slight underdog on this one, uh, whereas Imavov coming in as a slight favorite. Strickland's coming off against two losses most recently, one against Cannonier, split decision, and before that he got knocked out by Pereira. And Strickland's been super active. This past few years, he had 3 fights in 2022, two in 2021, two in 2020. So he's been in there. We've seen him quite a bit these past few years. Imavov, he has he's coming off of 3 wins most recently. Before that, a loss to Phil Hawes by decision. Before that, had a streak of wins as well. Um, and yeah, the most recent win against Joaquin Buckley. Before that, Shabaznian. So has been facing some pretty high level competition. Strickland also facing the top of the division. Most recently, Cannonier and Pereira. Pereira, obviously now the champion. But Hermance before that, Uriah Hall. So these guys are both at the top. Been fighting the very top competition. In terms of who is gonna win this one, for how are you leaning and why?
I This is a fight that was a toss up to me. And in DraftKings, I didn't pick, I didn't bet on this one. I was like, I could see it going either way. Strickland has such an awkward style, but he's been able to like completely nullify Uriah Hall, Jack Hermanson. Those fights, I was like, they're gonna stop him. They're gonna take him down. They're gonna, make him work, and he was able to just walk through whatever and just walk them down, and he controlled that fight against Pereira. I honestly didn't think he was doing too bad because he's not afraid to get hit. He's got that just like, I'm gonna get hit, I'm gonna hit you, I'm gonna get hit, like let's see who lands first. Ended up not being the best of strategies because Pereira like hit him like 3 times before he hit the ground, like as he dropped him. Against
Yeah,
Kenyer, like that was kind of a disappointing fight because I felt he pressured and I felt he was looking to land, they mix it up. Whereas Kenyer, I thought was just looking to land the one big shot, and I think eventually he's gonna have to incorporate grappling or mix it up. I know these guys fall in love with knocking people out, finishing them, but at the same time, like that's led to you losing twice. Like you're definitely an exciting fighter to watch, but at what point is it going to start affecting your path to the title? With Imavov, Joaquin Buckley's a great striker. Phil Hawes, was his last loss, and that's a great striker as well. But he's just been finishing people. Against Joaquin Buckley, Buckley's a strong fighter, and yeah, he decisioned him. But I think the fact that he won unanimously shows that he can just hang with the strikers. This is going to be a stand-up fight. I wonder if the weight difference is going to make play a difference. For those of you guys who don't know, this was a last-minute change due to um, what's his name, Gastelum getting um, some sort of mouth injury and like staph on his face, and
Yeah,
so
don't listen to Conor McGregor's diagnosis. It's not necessarily the medically accurate information coming out of his Twitter. But yes, some kind of medical condition that Gastelum had, and so yeah, this fight's taking place at light heavyweight, whereas Strickland obviously being in the 185-pound weight class, but because of it being short decision or short uh, time to prepare for the fight, they moved the weight class up. So yeah, there is that factor too. I feel like that's kind of an X factor. Who you know would have been maybe more negatively impacted by doing a weight cut. Um, and yeah, I'm not sure who that would benefit more. One thing that's interesting that you mentioned about Strickland needing to incorporate more grappling. If you look at his grappling stats, they're actually pretty good. His takedown accuracy is quite a bit higher than Imavov. His takedown defense is also a bit higher, and his takedown average is slightly higher, which is interesting because I feel like Imavov thought it was more as the grappler, Strickland, more as the striker. Imavov has more submissions, so his grappling game is there, but I think Strickland has slightly better wrestling stats that he should, maybe he hasn't leveraged them in his past several fights because he's try to make his fights more exciting or something. But I totally agree with you. If he goes back to incorporating more of the wrestling and the grappling, that's only going to help. If he wants to strike, that is just going to help his striking game. Throw in a few of those takedowns during the match, especially early on, just so early on in the match, the guy's got to be worrying about and thinking about the takedown when Strickland really probably wants to just try to knock his head off. So
yeah.
you didn't bet on this one in DraftKings, but which way are you leaning in terms of do you think there's an advantage to either guy?
I'm gonna just do the generic answer and say the bigger guy is gonna have the better advantage. Having that extra 10 pounds when he's already naturally a big guy to begin with, that's gonna play a factor. Like he's probably been able to eat, relax, focus on a couple other things. And granted, he only fought, a month ago. He's gonna be in pretty good shape, and he went the whole distance. So it's not like he fought and then, got it ended quickly and whatever. No, he fought 15 minutes. So I'm
Yeah.
excited for this. I'm kind of like, do you know if this is 3 rounds or 5 rounds? I assume three,
Um,
right?
I'm not sure. I mean, typically the main events all the main events now are 5 rounds. Um, so I'm not sure. I guess we'll have to wait and see. I don't see it listed anywhere on the ESPN thing, so I'm not sure. I'm going to in terms of my pick, I'm going to lean towards Imavov on this one for a couple of reasons. Whenever they're close, I look to some of these other things. So like age is one of those things, So Strickland's 4 years older than Imavov, and typically, fights are going to favor the younger guy. Strickland coming off of 2 losses, even though you could never accuse him of having an issue with confidence. At least from what he expects on the inside, there's got to be something uh, there that impacts you in some kind of way. Where Imavov coming off of a 3-fight win streak, and looking to get his title elimination fight and potentially get a title fight. I feel like Strickland, his title elimination fight was against Pereira and ended up losing. I feel like it's similar to one of these other matches where one guy is maybe in a more defensive position in terms of their career, and another guy is a little bit more on the offensive. So I'm gonna lean towards Imavov on this one. And yeah, that's all we have for today. Anything else you want to mention, Fern? Any updates on the boxing realm?
Uh, Follow us on all social media. We're posting more on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I'm looking to do an interview here shortly with Zeke Flores, still our sponsored fighter. Looks like he's going to be fighting next month. Shout out to Zeke Flores. Check him out on Instagram. We'll be posting his highlights, original content with him. And yeah, hopefully you guys are enjoying. We're posting more and more boxing stuff. Last week, one of our posts for Gervonta Davis knockout got over 6,000 likes. So we're getting more followers on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all that stuff. Thanks for supporting, and we're almost at a year, Colby. We're almost at a
Yeah.
year we've been doing this, so having a blast and yeah, loving it.
All right, we're gonna